Well, for more on this, we can bring in Peter Zalmayev, Director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on Around the World today. Now, we heard him a little earlier. Zelenskyy wants Donald Trump to host peace talks in Washington, believing that Russian President Vladimir Putin would find it hard to say no to Trump. What do you make of Zelenskyy's reasoning there?
Well, Zelenskyy, of course, is trying to increase pressure on the Russian side through his own diplomacy with Trump, which I think has had a leg up recently with the visit to the Oval Office of the undefeated heavyweight champion of Ukraine in boxing, Mr. Usyk. He's a strong man, and Donald Trump likes both strong men and strong men, if you know what I mean, the distinction there. And they had a talk, and Donald Trump, I think, needs to be dissuaded from this position that Russia is simply too big to be defeated in the battlefield. Ukraine, as your correspondent just mentioned, has been proving this theory otherwise for the last several months with its convincing, convincing successes in the battlefield, and also an increasing ability to strike ever deeper into Russia. An oil refining facility in Moscow hit today, one of the largest in all of Russia. And of course, Donald Trump has been learning his lesson, this lesson the hard way on his own, with Iran, of course. We've seen how both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are now increasingly compared when it comes to their hubris, the hubris of the large powers that in the 21st century are simply not able often to defeat smaller powers who are able to resist through new technology such as drones, etc. And Ukraine, of course, is at the very cutting edge of that. And so that's sort of the task, is to convince Donald Trump that his old thinking about Russia as the superpower that can never be defeated, that should be, I think, revised accordingly.
You said it yourself, Donald Trump likes strong men. We know, of course, that Trump has in the past been charmed by Putin. He is absolutely impressed by him. Why does Zelenskyy think that won't happen this time around?
Well, I mean, I think he beat, this time he beat Putin to this meeting. And we know that Donald Trump is very much influenced by the last person he ever spoke with. And already apparently there was a meeting behind the scenes at the G7 meeting between Zelenskyy and Trump. And I think Trump is planning to meet Zelenskyy again. He said this was a great meeting. And he did mention that Russia is losing too many men. It should really sit down and negotiate. I mean, of course, he added that Ukraine is also losing men. But, you could sense that, influence of the last person Donald Trump spoke with. And that last person was President Zelenskyy. I think there is a little bit of a hope there, even though I think Donald, ultimately it's Putin who will decide whether to sit down and talk. And he seems to be still sticking to his guns. We don't know what information he's fed by his people around him, how accurate it is, because he keeps claiming that all of the goals of the special military operation shall have been fulfilled, right? It's a bit detached from reality. Donald Trump, though, to the point of his motivation, I think, after this less than convincing victory in Iran, Donald Trump has already said that he will want to mediate, re-engage with Ukraine, because let's not forget, it all comes back to his election promise to solve this conflict within 24 hours. So it's still hanging over him. It would be nothing sweeter for Trump to deliver something when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, to deliver some sort of a peace agreement before the November elections in Congress.
And with real progress now seemingly being made on Iran, do you think that this is going to be Trump's focus for the next weeks and months? Is that likely?
I mean, it's a big if, of course. We've seen how in Iran there's simply no telling whether this newest, promise by Donald Trump is worth the paper it's written on, how durable that will be, of course. But if that is the big if that is the case, then Donald Trump will be seeking to end his 10th war, right? I've lost count how many wars. There's a little bit of a hope. But once again, let's keep our hopes within reasonable bounds. Vladimir Putin sticking to his guns. I think he's made this calculation that continuing this war, as bloody, as costly it has been to Russia, is still a safer choice for him personally, politically, and physically than ending this war right now with Ukraine remaining an independent and a sovereign state rather than a satellite or a colony, as Vladimir Putin envisions it.
And you are seeing live images on your screens of world leaders, the leaders of those G7 countries, at the G7 summit in France today. We do have time for one last question. There do remain a lot of red lines when it comes to possible negotiations. Ukraine, for a start, refusing to cede any further territory to Russia. That's just one of a number of red lines that Ukraine has when it comes to these possible negotiations. Just how entrenched are the red lines that we've heard repeated time and time again? Where is the space here for real negotiation?
I think, once again, the territorial issue is kind of a red herring. The Russians are saying, well, just give us the rest of what we haven't captured yet, and we'll be at peace with it. I mean, apart from the fact that it completely ruins any notion of international law, and it's hugely unfair. And by some accounts, the way Russia is advancing, it will take it many more years to complete the capture of these 4 oblasts, the regions that it has declared according to its constitution as part of Russia proper. Apart from that, and apart from giving it an advantage to Russia, the commanding heights of Sloviansk and those yet uncaptured towns, Ukrainians are of the opinion that, once again, it will only allow Russia the breathing room, some time to rearm and to re-attack Ukraine. We need something more solid than just Russian promises. And that's why we're not there yet. There's no formula outside of NATO membership. And that also is under question, of course, now that Donald Trump has tried his best to delegitimize NATO as a military alliance. But we need some solid guarantees that whatever agreement is signed with Russia will be durable and will guarantee Ukraine's continued sovereignty.
Peter Zalmayev, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Peter Zalmayev, Director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative, thank you very much.